Hello everyone, welcome back to Real Reds Talk. Today we're going to ask the question, why could Manuel Ugarte be under pressure at Manchester United? We're also going to discuss the key dynamics involved in this situation, which includes the collapse of Casemiro, why Ugarte may struggle, how much difference can one man truly make, why the midfield has been an issue for a while at our club and trying to fill it, and also your thoughts towards the end of the show as well, and 5 questions that I'm going to leave you guys with. So, as always, smash a like in the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's dive into this one. Kaboom! So the game on Sunday highlighted where we're currently at with Casemiro. He's obviously responsible for the 2 goals that Liverpool scored, raising doubts about his current form and ability to cope with the pace at the Premier League on a weekly basis. Our midfield seems disjointed, and Casemiro seems to be struggling between like a high pressing front and a deep defending backline, which is basically like a fragile bridge in between 2 islands. When you compare it to Liverpool's midfield and you look at like Szoboszlai, McAllister, Gravenberch, I think the 2 things that they're both completely opposite. Liverpool had physicality, they had cohesion, and they both had this kind of supporting network and when to rotate, and they all look very joined together despite only being together for like, what was it, a year? Whereas ours, very disjointed, loads of gaps, there wasn't a network of support there, and they don't really complement each other in terms of it being a midfield profile. So I think when we talk about Casemiro, there are some interesting points to consider. 1, is Casemiro's decline about his age, or is it Ten Hag's tactical system not suiting him, or both? I personally think it's both. I think it's a toxic marriage that cannot continue. Number 2, so who should replace Casemiro? On more to the point, who should support him more as a midfielder? I'll touch on that a little bit later when I do my Ugarte analysis. Now, I wouldn't completely write off Casemiro. I still think he has some qualities going forward, creatively, playing higher up as an 8, let's say, for example, or as in a decoy 10. Just think you need someone there who's going to compensate for his loss of speed and physicality, as some great players have done in the past. I mean, if you look at some players that have pivoted, Andre Pirlo being a perfect example, transitioned from a more dynamic midfielder to a deep line playmaker using vision and passing rather than physicality. Xabi Alonso's another one, focused on positioning and ball distribution as his pace declined, becoming more of a midfield general. Sergio Busquets adapted by relying on spatial awareness, anticipation and timing instead of physical attributes. And even someone like a Makelele maintained his role by focusing on reading the game and positional discipline rather than speed. So these are examples where we've seen players and people might be writing them off, or they've had a bit of a positional change. Even like Wayne Rooney dropped deep off. Like, there's loads of things out there that you can just look at as a bit of a case study. So something I think you can do to help out Casemiro currently and deal with what we've got, implement a double pivot. So pair Casemiro with another defensive-minded midfielder, someone like Ugarte, which would reduce his workload and the emphasis on him being the sole progressor and just improve positional coverage in general. You can narrow the pressing lines, compress the space between defence and attack, so the team can maintain compactness and avoid leaving gaps, which has been such a massive issue for United. Leave him high up if you want. Like I said before, the pitch, do like a bit of a decoy as a 10, drop Manu and Bruno deeper, have Manu as your, main ball carrier, and then you have Bruno Fernandes who can progress through the lines. He's very good at that, especially when he does drop deeper. But whichever way you look at it, the main point coming out of this with Casemiro is, if you look at his current struggles, if he doesn't improve or doesn't turn it around, there is huge pressure on Ugarte to hit the ground running in this. Everyone's looking at him like the shiny light that's going to come in and solve all the problems. And I'm going to tell you why he is not that guy. So why could Ugarte struggle slightly? I think pressure and expectation is extremely high already with this move. And it's extremely high at United anyway. Like, there's so many eyeballs on you. It's heavily scrutinised. People are expecting him to come in and be, God in there and everything's going to be fine and dandy and perfect. I don't think it's going to work out like that, because this is a nucleus for reoccurring problems, and one player just doesn't solve the whole thing. I think for all output volume that Ugarte offers you in terms of ball recoveries, interceptions, tackles, which is all fantastic, there's another stat that's concerning as well. He was also dribbled past more times per 90, 4.1, than any other midfielder in the Champions League last season. So that's something to keep an eye on. It is high volume, but what you also get with that as well is it going the opposite way sometimes. If we take a look at his passing range, I think that's something he can improve on. It's one of the reasons why Luis Enrique didn't necessarily want him. He wants a deep line playmaker like a Vitinha who's going to pop it about, switch play. He doesn't really have that necessarily in his locker. I think he's very subtle with it. He's very composed. He does the simple passes, which United, could do with a little bit more. Maybe, I don't know. Talk to me. What do you think? But I just think we could become, a little bit more predictable with Ugarte there. Casemiro's just a million miles, play every pass forward, try break the line, try go over the top. And 9 times out of 10, he loses it. I mean, Casemiro has a pass accuracy this season so far. It's like 70%. It's absolutely awful. So maybe bringing in that simplistic view of Ugarte, just ticking it about, keeping it simple, going back to the keeper at times, it might actually help United in that sense. I've also seen a couple of clips of Ugarte where his decision-making under pressure is a little bit questionable. And obviously with the Premier League, the high intensity requires quicker decisions, more physicality. Everything's like at an elite pace in it. So that's something, especially in tight spaces, that he's going to need to improve on. And his positional awareness is key. I don't want to see him caught out position like Casemiro is, a million times a game. He'll have to improve on his spatial awareness, particularly when United's defence is so stretched. So one thing I've praised the signing of Ugarte. I can absolutely see why United's done it. He's like a two-star Mascherano or Kante, eats up ground, keeps it simple, and will offer a lot more than Casemiro in that sense. But buckle up, Manuel. Buckle up, because it is going to be a whirlwind of a ride if Ten Hag sticks to this kind of system and tactics. Also, how much difference can one player make? We've seen it with Bruno, to be fair, when he came in. Changed a lot, but not every signing is going to be Bruno Fernandes. I think he's unlikely going to be able to fix all United's current struggles alone. He could improve ball winning and defensive stability, but United's issues are more systematic than that. We have a disjointed midfield, inconsistent pressing, a lack of cohesion between defence and attack, which is going to require more than just one player, waltzing in from PSG to resolve. I'm not disputing his presence could reduce gaps, but team shape, tactics, coordination, they all need attention for significant improvement, and that is down to Erik Ten Hag, not Manuel Ugarte. In essence, we need collective adjustments, not just individual brilliance. I think a good example, actually, to bring up when we talk about one player coming in, and I think when Barcelona signed Philippe Coutinho for a huge price tag, he was expected to fill the creative void left by Neymar, and despite Coutinho's talent, this is a player who struggled to kind of adapt to the team, the tactical system, and the expectations, and it just didn't work out whatsoever. But that's also because Barcelona's issues ran a lot deeper than one player could solve, and Coutinho's presence didn't elevate the team as they first hoped for, 140 million or something absolutely crazy, and obviously ended up being a flop of a signing. So which that even shows, how highly talented players at their absolute peak may not end up being the transformative player that we all think. So I'm just trying to put caution in there. I'm not downplaying it. I'm not trying to be a dampener and say he's going to be shit and he's not going to work out. But I just think a lot of the time when United make a signing, he's put on this absolute gold pedestal and can do nothing wrong. And sometimes, because the expectations are so much, when they're slightly under that, it just gets criticism from rival fans alike. So I'm going into this, I'm looking at Ugarte as a signing, and my expectations are very level. I know the pros and I know the cons. Just before we get into your thoughts and feelings and opinions on this player coming in, I wanted to touch on why United have had such a long-term issue with midfield. We've always discussed this, and we haven't had a elite player there. Sure, we've had players who have had patches. We've made several high-profile signings who we thought was going to be the answer, but due to inconsistent form and injuries, it's just not worked out. I mean, you had players who had good seasons. Casemiro, when he first came in, was great. One of our players of the season. You had Nemanja Matic, who had 1 or 2 fantastic years, and you had a midfielder, Matic, Herrera and Pogba, that worked out at times, but never ever on a consistent basis. And I think because we've had so many different managers and different tactical setups, which has led to kind of frequent changes in the midfield roles and changed the responsibilities, that's another thing that's contributed to this kind of lack of cohesion and fluidity. You look at key midfielders that have often been sidelined due to injuries. There's a list here, right? So obviously Schweinsteiger, when we brought him in, people thought he may have been the answer under Van Gaal. Mega name, mega signing, was a fan of the club, the right personality, and a very talented player who's won a World Cup and league titles and domestic cups. Came in, just bad injury problems, never ever got over it, really. Paul Pogba was another one, inconsistent. On his day, he'd be unbelievable, but then other games he'd go completely missing. And then there was injuries, and his agent was causing issues. Donny van de Beek was brought in under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, not necessarily as the answer, but a player a lot of us was excited about. He was on a Ballon d'Or shortlist. He'd been doing really well at Ajax. And then that just obviously went up selling for 500 grand to Girona. Matic and Casemiro, someone else who I've touched on as well. But you can go through the profiles up until Michael Carrick, which, by the way, I was watching a compilation on last night in the Champions League. I mean, oh my God, what I do for that kind of player. His positional awareness, his ability on the ball, his the way he conducts a game is incredible. Unbelievable player. But yeah, we haven't really filled that hole since he's left. I think the balance has been off for so long. Even when it's looked remotely good, there's still been fundamental issues, or they've played a handful of games together and then it's disrupted and then the manager's sacked and it's been chop and change and the environment has never been right. So bringing a young profile in now like Ugarte and having Casemiro alongside him, I mean, you've got a 19-year-old there and a 23-year-old. Maybe there could be, you know, the next Bruno maybe on his way. But it's an issue that's needed resolving for a long, long time. So hopefully Ugarte could be one key piece of that. Right, let's get into the important bits then. Your time to shine here. I'm going to leave you guys with 5 questions, as I always do with these kind of videos and these pre-records. So, number 1, out of 10, how good do you think Ugarte will be of a signing for us? Number 2, can you see him being deployed alongside Casemiro in certain games? And how do you see that relationship working? Number 3, what is your starting 11 if everyone is fit? Number 4, what's one midfielder you would sign instantly right now if you had a blank checkbook? And number 5, who is your favourite defensive midfielder of all time? Get them all in the comments. I'll be reading them. I'll be keeping an eye on them, and I'll mention them in the live shows as well. Please don't forget to leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel. My name's Nick. This is Real Reds Talk, and thank you for watching. See you in a bit.